Good afternoon, lecturer.
Yes, please.
Good. Thank you, lecturer. Lecturer, I have one question. So, I am going to conduct a semi-structured interviews, and as I do the research and I watch the YouTube, it's a good idea to avoid leading questions. But in case that we are interviewing the participants, and then they somehow they lack of ID, and then they run out of ID, and they don't have anything to share more. Can we like somehow we propose some point like it's type of leading question to them so that we can proceed, we can continue the interview. You get what you get
Okay,
my question, lecturer, right?
I got your point. Thank you. Thank you very much. I
Okay,
think,
okay, thank you, lecturers.
yeah, thank you very much. What is a leading question? So a leading question is a kind of question that researcher or the interviewer himself or herself is trying to suggest the answer to the interviewee. All right. So we need to make this clear. What is a prompt? Prompt, which means that you just give them an idea. For example, you probably give them an example so that they have an idea to answer the question. But we want the researcher to avoid leading questions because uh, we we really want the interviewee to come up with their own ideas to answer our question. Okay, so if you use leading question, it's more like you are now imposing certain question. Um, uh, for example, in the in for example, you want to say that, well, uh, smoking is it's very harmful, to people's health, for example. And then you say, okay, what do you think that smoking is really harmful? Now, these kinds of question, it's very, it I would say that it's quite leading because you are now giving an idea to the person that, okay, it is very bad already. So if the person say, if the person may tend to go along with the idea that you have suggested, or but what we can do, in to overcome this, is just to give them an idea. What do you think? For example, instead of asking that, you can say, what do you think about smoking? Okay, what do you think are the effects of smoking, or something like that. Or for example, if you talk about blended learning, you may have an idea that, well, blended learning is quite effective to help, to help students learn, the English effectively, for example. This is the idea. Probably it is your hypothesis, that the blended learning is effective to help the student learn English quite effectively. But now the thing is that when it comes to the questions, you're not going to ask them that, okay, blended learning is effective, isn't it? Or you think that, okay, do you think that blended learning is very effective to help or something? So now it is quite sort of leading the people to agree with the idea that blended learning is quite effective. But the idea is that as the researcher, if you really want to get the data from the people, it would be a good idea for people to think. Try to ask the question in a way, in a way that in a ways of making people think about what their response is. For example, you could ask them, okay, uh, uh, what are the benefits, or for example, what do you think of blended learning? But before that, you can ask some other question. For example, have you used blended learning, and what do you think about blended learning? And do you have any difficulties in using blended learnings in your class or whatever? So this will give them, this is not really leading because you are trying to get people. But for example, if people tend to have, if people feel that, for example, the interviewee tend to get stuck, they probably don't know what sort of answer to your question, then you can give them a prompt. give an example. Okay, so for example, I'll give you another example like you are talking about the social media platform, the platforms that people used for the online teaching, for example. So probably they don't have an idea about what a social media platform is, and then you can say, for example, Facebook, for example, Zoom meeting or Teams or something like that. These give them an idea. Okay, I know what a social media platform is. So this is like a prompt. So you are not going to suggest the idea, but you are going to give an idea for the people to come up with, with how they can actually answer the question.
Yeah, yeah, lecturer, I get it. Like, so
Okay. Yeah.
we should not have a leading question, but somehow we have some prompt and some examples so that they can generate the answer, right?
Yeah, normally we give them the prompt when we think that they seem to get stuck and they probably don't have any ideas to answer. Or probably they don't know, they don't really get, the point, your point when you ask the question. So it would be a good idea to give them a prompt, just a clue,
Yes, yes,
for them
truly, truly.
to know
Yes,
how to
yes.
answer your question.